What used to be a common household item that's rare now? A huge wooden piece of furniture with a small TV screen embedded in the middle. We had a new TV sitting on top of the old one. The broken TV became a TV stand lol. Mom? LOL. Those old consoles C or T TVs were so heavy I don't blame people for just putting the new one on top. It's such a classic look that I did the same thing in my house in Animal Crossing. Man, I forgot how common this was. Or sometimes the old TV did work, the new one was just bigger and brighter. That's how it was at my grandparents' place. The console TV below probably weighed 200 plus pounds, so I can understand why. A wall-mounted, corded telephone. With a super long cord. It had to reach the powder room in case you didn't want everyone to hear your conversation. My grandparents had a mid-century modern home that wasn't very large but had a little private phone booth room for making calls. My dad would just set the phone down for an hour at a time when Aunt Linda called, he'd be doing other things, then walk by the phone and be like huh and then keep doing whatever he was doing lol. Aunt Linda sound like my aunt. Aunt Linda sounds like my mom. I can put the phone down, go take care of something, come back, and she won't have noticed my absence. This includes video calls. Ashtrays. Even if you weren't a smoker, there was a time when it was impolite to not have one at the ready in case a smoker visited. I remember McDonald's having these little, round, metal ashtrays on their tables. They were made out of a heavy foil kind of. Different worlds for sure. With the McDonald's arch logo stamped onto them. And the seating area being smoking and non-smoking but with literally no separation between the two. A no-smoking section in a restaurant is like having a no-peeing section of a pool. My parents didn't smoke but always allowed guests to smoke in our house. I still can't believe they tolerated that. To be fair, at the time smokers were also smoking in waiting rooms and hospitals and restaurants and buses. Most adult people were so surrounded by secondhand constantly that it bothered them less. A sort of nose blindness. When I was a kid, I remember people smoked indoors everywhere. I can remember my dad smoked in the grocery store. But I don't really remember the smell, probably because the entire world reeked of it. Now though? I can smell a cigarette from across the yard, outside, on a windy day. Because I'm not exposed to them much anymore. To be clear, this was monumental for workers. My parents worked at a casino while they were in college. You wouldn't believe how many of the older employees they worked with died of cancer despite not smoking. A casual smoker might inhale direct smoke half an hour a day. These people were exposed to secondhand smoke in every direction for 40+ hours a week. It would be like smoking a pack a day despite never smoking. It was like it was rude not to. Smokers thought nothing of just lighting up anywhere and expecting you to go get them an ashtray. Who would even consider not going outside to smoke today? Such a bizarre cultural change in just a generation or two. When people bitch about the government being useless, I always bring up how it was the government that got Americans to stop smoking. Not by outlawing it right away, but by systematically changing our culture over a couple of decades. First warning labels. Then it was smoking sections in public places. Yes, they were useless, but it got us to start to change our behavior. Then they raised taxes to make them more expensive to buy. That was when I quit because I realized one year I was spending about 20% of my income on cigarettes. Then came the banning of all smoking in public places. We went from 50% of Americans smoking to about 15% today, I believe. Well put. I'm a former smoker. I remember smoking on a plane. As I got older and restrictions expanded, I just became more aware in general. It really is amazing how completely our society has changed in just a few years, spurred by the government. A phone book. You can get one, but they grow smaller every year. Even the Manhattan phone book, I would imagine, is too small to use as a booster seat. Where I live, it's fewer pages than the average restaurant menu. My favorite phone book was the one in Iceland. It listed every person in the country by first name. The Magnus section was the biggest. You could say it was humongous. And the yellow pages. Last decade, yellow pages I didn't want on my doorstep and the free weekly version of the newspaper rotting away in half the driveways in my neighborhood. I would call both and ask them to put me on a do not deliver list, and they asked me why. My reason was the internet exists and I have it on my phone. Didn't stop the delivery. They have to deliver to keep their reach and audience numbers up for the advertisers. Even if you don't use or read it, they can keep telling advertisers they have a large circulation. Much like social media, you're not the customer, you're the product. Formal living rooms you could never be in or was never comfortable to be in 'cause it was covered with plastic. Ah yes. My fondest memory of my mother taking us to see elderly church people was of little kid me getting stuck to the couch plastic. Plastic-covered furniture, plastic fruit. Yuck. I have absolutely never understood the plastic over furniture thing. My grandparents had it because it preserved the furniture for longer. I understand times were hard and buying new stuff wasn't easy, but what's the point of having the couch if sitting on it is miserable and I'd rather take the floor? The point is that it looks nice. That's about it. There's also the social component of being able to say, yeah, we have this very fancy room we never use, meaning that you have the money to buy a house large enough to have such a room and to decorate and furnish it for no purpose other than to look at it. It's about the same as a large front lawn. It looks nice, but when was the last time you saw anyone actually doing anything in their front lawn besides mowing the grass or tending to the plants? The family encyclopedia. Were we weird in this? Google just ate its lunch and burped out Wikipedia. We were poor, so we used the neighbors. It was totally normal to knock on their door and announce you're there to use the encyclopedia. I still remember the wonder it was when Encarta came out. A whole encyclopedia on a single disc. How could that even be possible? My grandparents lived next door and had a full set of World Book. I was homeschooled in the 90s, so it was super useful for reports. Then we got Encarta on our computer. I spent hours wandering through 3D castles looking for ghosts. I had the World Book. It was a fantastic resource and beat having to go to the library. Ah, what kids these days didn't have to suffer through. We didn't have cable or video games, so we were left to our own devices to entertain ourselves. I spent a lot of time reading World Book. Those decorative glass bottles in the kitchen, sometimes uniquely shaped that were stuffed with various veggies, beans or what have you in some type of oil. Every kitchen I went into had those ugly things, lol. Those still exist. You just need Italian or Caribbean extended family or in-laws. They're expensive as shit too. Just buy them from Goodwill. They have many. Cheap, and you were never going to open them and eat the beans anyway. Or olives. Pencil sharpeners. I don't know why, but if you go to a basement of any house built in the 1950s or earlier, you'll find a mounted pencil sharpener. Because the kids can't fucking lose it if it's bolted to the wall. One of those is high on my wish list. No matter how many times I tell my kids to be careful with the pencil sharpeners, no matter how many times I establish a place to which they must be returned, no matter how many times I insist on keeping them myself and only handing them out when needed, eventually they disappear. And by eventually, I mean after 3 months, tops. And let's be real, the wall-mounted ones work so much better. I always get the best point and flawless sides when I use on over any other. You've had better luck than I have. All the ones I'd use in school would mangle the wood and barely sharpen the graphite. The small handheld ones with the blade usually worked the best for me. I'm just in an unending cycle of buying replacement mechanical pencils. Not an improvement. Victorians had 3 things on the dinner table, the way we have salt and pepper. 2 were a salt cellar and a white or black pepper shaker. No one knows what the third was. It was so ubiquitous in the Victorian age that they didn't name it or talk about it in diaries, recipes, housekeeping journals, etc. It's usually a small square box-shaped porcelain thing, usually with a lid. Our best guess is that it's powdered mustard. It's possible that different families used it for different things. There's mystery culinary things from other ages, too. No one knows what all was on the table in ancient Rome or carried in the rucksacks of Vikings or early Britons either. Some things were so common, no one wrote anything down about them. This is why I take pictures of normal things, like photos of my house. In 50 years, I will struggle to remember what my house or bedroom looked like, or how I lived before XX technology. That little Victorian box could contain almost anything. They had an obsession with porcelain, lol. I've seen condensed milk can holders made out of it. If I had to guess, I would say that the box you mentioned was used to serve spices like you said. Most likely nutmeg, they loved it back then. A piano. My husband and I restore and rehome older musical instruments and are constantly bombarded with messages from people trying to give away older pianos. Most folks don't understand that these things are expensive to move, require space to store, typically need regular tuning at the very least, and few play them anyhow. It's a terrible shame, but it is what it is. Yup. Have 2 upright pianos in my mom's basement. Haven't been played in 10+ years as they were my dad's after he got rid his grand. No one wants them as I'm in the process of cleaning out my mom's place. A shame because they were great pieces when he was alive and maintained them. We have my grandmother's piano yet neither of us plays. Our daughter does but has no room for it in her house and would prefer a keyboard. I have no idea what to do with it. A house intercom system. We had one growing up. It's a main panel on the wall with toggle switches to control each remote comm in other rooms. You could play AM, FM radio to any subset of rooms, hold a button to talk to any subset of rooms, or actively listen to other rooms. The best analogy would be a late 60s, early 70s version of a Sonos system plus a baby monitor, 2-way radio system built into the walls. Of course it meant physical wires connecting all of those. My dad spent a lot of money having a house custom built, and instead of owning a nice stereo, he had one of those intercom systems with an 8-track player. I use Google Dots for an intercom. My family just put a doorbell in my room if they wanted me. The number of rings meant different things. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.